Hey, welcome to Mind Your Own Biz, the podcast where we help small business owners with big dreams build something authentically you. I'm Alicia Yervis, educator, marketer, designer, nacho enthusiast, and your big sister in business. I'm excited for us to have this cozy spot to chat. Each episode, we'll tackle candid conversations, actionable tips, and a few fun tangents to help you run your business your way. Because business is always personal, no matter what anyone says. So grab your iced coffee or those nachos and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Mind Your Own Biz. My name's Alicia Yervis. I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I have been chatting with a couple folks from my theater days lately in some past episodes and some more that are coming up. And it's made me so happy because ever since I started my business, I have been able to kind of keep my hand involved in the arts in one way or another, whether it's, certain design projects that come up or marketing campaigns that need to be run and put together, or even just, some consulting and strategy sessions and stuff with some of my past contacts who have brought me on to other projects. And that's been really fun. So anytime that I get to kind of reconnect with people from that special time in my life, I love it. And you've heard me talk about, my theater background a couple times here on this podcast. I spent a lot of time working in different marketing departments. And one of my favorite things at the last theater that I worked at, which was Two River Theater in Red Bank, we presented our own shows, and each play that would come in would have like a different team. So certainly different casts, different designers, directors, all that kind of stuff, and stage managers. And so when you're working behind the scenes and you find out who's going to be working on the next production or the next crew, you're always skimming the list, seeing if, whose name you recognize. And it's always just such a treat seeing certain names pop up again and again. Particularly when it comes to stage managers. I have a deep appreciation for stage managers. I love them so much. I feel like they are just the true glue of any production. They are behind the scenes magicians. They are pros who just are the calm in the storm that keep everything all running. And over the years, I worked with a lot of awesome ones and some not great ones, which is just heartbreaking because it's such an important role. So when someone was missing the mark, like it really affected everything. But that's a story for another episode. That is not why we're here today. The person that we're going to be talking to today is absolutely one of the best stage managers I've ever worked with, and one of the best stage managers in existence, as far as I'm concerned. I just can't, we're going to talk all about it, but I just can't express how much I appreciate her attention to detail, how much she can multitask, how thorough and clear she is, and everything that she did to, of course, make the productions as awesome as they could be, but also everything that she did on the back end to help everyone in marketing and everyone at the theater, help everything run smoothly for everyone, help make everyone's life easier by just being awesome at who she is. And she just stands out, like I said, like amongst many, many amazing production stage managers. She just stands out to me as one of the best. And one of the reasons that I'm having her here on this podcast is because, of course, as a theater fan, I want to talk about all of that behind the scenes stuff, how she, decided to work behind the scenes instead of on stage, and, what made her appreciate that and find her space in that world, but also because she now also runs a really cool creative business on the side that blends her theater world magic with her family legacy of fiber artistry. And so we're gonna get into quilting. And we're going to talk all about the long arm machine. We're going to talk about everything. So I am really, really excited to see this awesome person again and spend some time getting to know her in this different way of her quilting and artistic side instead of, wearing a headset and running all over the theater and taking notes and calling light cues and organizing everyone and putting out fires and reading from a big fat book of notes. She's awesome. So I am really, really excited to have Amanda Bertie Michaels on the show. She goes by Bertie. So Bertie's a Broadway stage manager and professional quilter. Descended from a long line of fabric artists, Bertie has been quilting for more than 25 years. She began dabbling in selling quilts during the COVID-19 pandemic when theaters were dark. She took the necessary steps to turn her hobby into an official small business only a year ago and has been delighted by the steady stream of work and creativity it provides. So I am really excited to welcome Bertie Michaels. Hi, my friend. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on this. As soon as you launched your quilting business, I knew I wanted to have you as a guest. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's such a pleasure. It's so nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. So, okay, we're going to talk about all of the quiltingness because I'm so fascinated. Your work is amazing. For those listening, you've got to check out her Instagram at Broadway Quilting, first of all, and her website, broadwayquilting.com, Bertie's website, to see her amazing work. And we're going to talk about that. But I have to start with how I first got to know you, which was through the theater world. So you have been a stage manager on many productions that I've worked on at Two River Theater in Red Bank when I used to work there. But you've also worked on off-Broadway, you've worked on Broadway, you've done all kinds of amazing things. And so before we get into some of those specifics, I would love to know what made you want to work behind the scenes, like specifically stage management. Were you like wanting to go into that specifically, or you just knew you wanted to be in theater, behind the scenes somehow? Or talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in rural New Hampshire and always loved the theater. My mom would take me to shows in New York, but there was no theater around. There was no theater for us to do. And so my mom and the mom of a friend of mine actually started a children's theater company when I was little in order to give us the opportunity to do the kind of work we were already excited about. And I thought I wanted to be an actor. I loved singing and dancing, and I got to, since it was my mom, got to play the lead in all the musicals, and I loved it. But because it wasn't a formal situation, it wasn't it was just a community theater group. So as we kids got older, we started to be in charge of running it and taking care of the younger kids. And so I, in particular, became the person who would schedule the rehearsals and who would organize the carpools so that the older kids would bring the younger kids and make sure everyone got home safe, and started doing these behind the scenes tasks kind of automatically, organizing the props, making sure backstage traffic happened. They always cast the show, with 4 different people playing each role. Each person got, a different night of the week. And so I was the one who kept track of who was going on when and who needed what costume, just because it was my theater company. It had been created kind of for me. So I still thought I wanted to be an actor when I went into college, but I was smart enough to go to a more general liberal arts program, and they required you to do a little bit of everything. And so it wasn't until I got to college that I even knew stage management was a career at all. And once I got there, I went, oh, all of these things that I've naturally been doing, that's a job. That's what I should be doing. I don't actually want to be on stage. So
Interesting.
Yeah,
It's funny because it's like, on the one hand, I'm sure your mom was like, oh my God, amazing. Like, I have so much help. Like, this is really cool, But yeah, okay. So it kind of opened your eyes to the fact that this thing that you were already naturally talented at and loved doing, and were good at, was actually something that you could make a living doing.
Exactly.
So okay, so you go through college, and then did you immediately start working in professional theater right after?
Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons I picked the school I went to is that there was a professional theater on campus.
Got it.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, they rented space on campus. And so I started interning there when I was still a student. And then they hired me right out of college for my first few professional jobs. They also, after a couple of years, gave me my equity card. They're the ones where I, yeah, got my union card and my
Mm-hmm.
first few professional jobs.
That is so cool. That's such a
Yeah.
cool like pipeline right there
Yeah.
for the students. That's awesome. So having gone on then to work in so many different kinds of venues, so with so many different productions, and so many different types of productions, musicals, plays, Shakespeare, new works. Do you have a favorite type? I'm sure you get this question all the time, but do you have a favorite type of show to manage?
I do definitely prefer musicals. And it took
Really?
me a while.
Okay.
Yeah, it took me a while to get there and figure that out. I started the theater that I started at was a Shakespeare theater. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, it led me to other plays, which led me to new works. And then it wasn't until I was in my early 30s that I looked around and said, oh, this isn't really getting me where I want to be, which is Broadway musicals, big, schmaltzy, fun,
Mm-hmm.
spectacle musicals. So I actually went back in my early 30s and worked as a PA at Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. And from there, met some Broadway musical stage managers and started creating that network because it is actually very separate network from the straight play off Broadway world where I'd been sitting in for a while. And so that
Mm.
was when I sort of climbed the ranks in that circle and started working Broadway musicals.
Yeah, I actually was going to ask because I literally don't know. Like how do you get chosen to, work on a project? Is it because I you don't like audition, right?
Right. No. So it really is about who you know. I actually got
Yeah.
that PA gig because it was being directed by someone who had directed a play that I worked on at Two River. And
Mm.
so he spoke to the PSM, which is the production stage manager, the head stage manager, and said, I have this person who really wants to work on the show. She's overqualified, but she really
Hmm.
wants to be here. Would you mind meeting with her? And I met with that stage manager and we had a lovely interview and he hired me. And I actually continue to work with him to this day.
Cool.
He's the one who got me the job on Come From Away and
Mm.
I continue to do new works with him. But yeah, so then it's sort of that director introduced me to that stage manager. That stage manager has introduced me to other stage managers who have hired me and other directors who have hired me, and then so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, it's word of mouth, it's
Yeah.
connections, it's your
Yes.
past, your reputation,
Yes.
and of being invited into those rooms and being
Yeah.
recommended. I think that's awesome. That's really cool. And I'm surprised that you said or musicals are your favorite, just because I'm I don't know everything that goes into it on the back end, but I just would imagine, oh my God, it just feels like so much more, so many extra things. And for example, like I've seen, and maybe you've seen this too, like on TikTok or on Instagram or whatever, I've seen some videos of behind the scenes of stage managers calling cues, like calling cues
Mhm.
for lights. And that's so fascinating to me because it seems like the counting or the cadence or the rhythm is not it's like you have to be a step ahead, right? And so how do you do that?
Well, I guess all of that is correct. All of that is
Yeah.
right. And I think that's why I enjoy it. I like putting
Mm.
all the puzzle pieces together. I like the extra problem solving. I like
Mhm.
the rhythm is a lot of what keeps me going when you're watching the same thing over and over and over again 8 times a week for as many weeks. It's
True.
the rhythm and the music sort of helps keep me focused and grounded and not getting bored and sick of it. And not that I get bored of plays, I don't. I still love to watch the work the actors are doing and I'm still very in tune with the rhythms of the show even if there isn't music, but it's just a little bit easier, I guess, with musicals
Mm.
for me.
Hmm.
And in
Love
terms of
that.
calling cues, yeah, I'm thinking about in particular the very first iteration of Be More Chill, which is where you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting designer had one sequence in a song late in the second act where for about 16 counts, there was a cue on every beat of the music. And so it was literally me saying, you know, lights, whatever, 360, go, 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 go. And it just was a lot of fun. It made me laugh every time. And it was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so cool. I've seen it in action and it's
Mm.
just, it's so impressive. And I wonder too, like I want to talk about more of the stage management life, but
Yeah.
talk to me about self-care for yourself. Like when you're
Mm.
dealing with so much, you know, so many little details, and you're kind of like the linchpin holding these things together. And it can get very tense backstage. And, you know, especially as we're heading towards, you know, tech week and getting closer. How do you take care of yourself amidst all of that?
It is a really difficult challenge. The stage management job is 24/7.
Yeah.
Although having said that, I did learn early that I need to turn my phone off at night, and that
Mm,
helped setting boundaries
that's
helped
a
for
good one.
sure. And then having something to do for myself that is not related to the show. So honestly, the quilting really
Mhm.
helps me stay keep a little bit of perspective and distance, and also just doing something that I enjoy for me and doesn't necessarily have a timeline or differing artistic opinions or anything like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, relaxing and
You could
still
just be
feels,
in the zone. Like,
yeah,
hmm
but still feels productive in a way that it lets me uh, not feel guilty for not doing work.
Gotcha. Yeah, and like when you're talking about you know, different opinions, different personalities, like
Mm.
you've worked with so many different people, so many different personalities, all of them creatives.
Mm-hmm.
We can all be a little kooky, as you know. So how does that become part of the job? Like managing different communication styles backstage and all of that.
Yeah. So two things about it. Number one, I go back to thanking my liberal arts program that made me take a
Hmm.
turn in every department in theater, because I think I really learned early a little bit of the language that each job speaks in the theater. And
Hmm.
so the second part of it is I was speaking to someone recently about my management style. And I said, I really just do a lot of listening. And I think knowing each department's language a little bit and then just listening to what they have to say before jumping in with my own solution or putting my own spin on it has been really helpful. And the other
Mm.
thing I think is there's a lot of discourse among stage managers about whether or not we are artists. And for myself, I don't think of myself as an artist in the theater world, but I think of myself as a facilitator of art. And so if
Hmm.
I'm keeping that perspective, you know, differing opinions and tensions backstage, my job is to facilitate whatever is best for the show
Hmm.
in whatever capacity that needs. And so I try to just be flexible and roll with
Hmm.
things.
Yeah, that's such an interesting take because, like, as soon as you said that, you know, like, are we artists or not? My first is like, yeah, of course you are. But I understand what you're saying. And it's almost like you had to give yourself that lens or that kind of structure to look
Yeah.
at it with and work within it,
Yeah.
um, to facilitate, like you're saying.
Yeah. And of
So that
course there are
makes,
artistic parts of our job. We are in charge of once the show is up and running, the director leaves and we're in charge of maintaining the artistic integrity. And so we need to have an eye to understanding. But again, that's the art that's already been created and we're
mhm.
maintaining it. And some people think there is an art to calling cues, which I agree with, because there are ways that you can really know even more than a lighting designer how to
Hmm.
nail the cue in exactly the moment to emphasize the emotional impact of whatever that light is focused.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's requires vision of our own, but it's really tweaking and finessing somebody else's vision. So for me personally, I think of it as facilitating.
Hmm. And I also love what you said about listening
Mm.
because I struggle with listening a lot. And that is such a good skill, and not everyone can do it. And I 1,000% agree that an excellent stage manager needs to be an excellent listener.
Mm.
Um, and I appreciate you calling that out and knowing and also just like having that skill and talent and knowing when to just absorb for a minute and not put, like you said, maybe your own opinion or bias or whatever on the thing
Yeah.
until you've heard all the information.
Yeah.
I think that that's so great. And I remember too, like I was mentioning in the intro, like how much I appreciate the multitasking and the how thorough you always are, as most stage managers are extremely thorough. How do you have a process, I guess, for capturing all those little breadcrumbs that come up in notes meetings and rehearsals, like all those little adjustments, all those little tweaks, all those little, let's make sure we do this, don't forget that, we have to do this. Like, how do you, I guess, how do you kind of pull that together? I'm sure
Yeah.
it's just, you have your pattern now, but talk to me about that a bit.
Well, I will say it's sort of constantly evolving. The way we gather notes, and particularly because stage managers work in teams, and I think the most successful stage managers are the ones who really utilize the whole team and kind of think as a hive mind. So
Mhm.
my most recent experiences, we use AnyList to
Okay.
share to-do lists and to sort of keep track, and that's an app. It's really a grocery app, but we use it
Mm,
as a as a as a literal to-do list. And you can assign different people different things, and then I also have an eye to, okay, that thing got done. I can take it off my mental list without having to have a team report to, back to me every 5 seconds. Oh, I did that. I did that. So it's sort of a visual way we keep a checklist all together so that we all know and can check in with each other. And if someone else on the team writes, oh, so and so's t-shirt, then I can go to them and
mhm.
say, hey, what's that about? Do we need to send a note up to costumes? Do we, can do this sort of follow up and follow through. Um, so that in any moment I can jot a quick thing and know that together we'll get it taken care of.
Yeah, it's like a collaborative online environment or a collaborative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Got
So
it.
that's been
Okay,
my most
cool.
recent, yeah,
hmm
effective
And
method.
so, yeah. And so as you're working back and forth in all these different venues, a couple times a year, a couple, every couple weeks, every couple months, whatever it is, like you're moving into these different spaces, you're working with these different crews and different teams. Stuff is located on different floors and different rooms, different places, different cities. How do you keep track of where everything is and adapt to that so quickly?
I think practice, honestly. The dealing with the people, the different people in the teams and different personalities and styles of working is more challenging than remembering
Hmm,
sort of where the paper is. There are always people who are home in the various institutions that you can ask. So even though I'm a freelancer and a visitor, there's always someone whose space it belongs to, and so
sure.
they can sort of direct you to the right place. And I just lean heavily on those people for the first few days or week and have no shame about asking for help
Yeah,
at all. And then it's the people. So and with the people, it's sort of just another exercise in communication. So I'm thinking the stage manager, the one I was talking about who I worked at, come from away and met at Paper Mill Playhouse, he is someone who doesn't keep his email on the phone. And so when I'm working for him, one of the things he requires from me is that I do have it on my phone. And so when something time sensitive comes in, I shoot him a text and say, hey, go to your email and check out this thing. And the rest of the time, I get to ignore the inbox because that's his job. But those
hmm
time sensitive ones, I sort of shoot him a little heads up. So I just recently closed Dead Outlaw on Broadway, and the
Mm.
team that I was working with there, I sort of automatically was doing that with the PSM, was letting her know when there were inbox, time sensitive things in the inbox. And after a while I said, do you actually want me to do this. I'm doing it because I'm in the habit from working with this other stage manager, but I don't have to do it. And she was like, oh, I was wondering why you did that. I don't
Hmm,
actually need that. I have the email on my phone and I check it pretty regularly. So you can stop doing that. And, no one was upset in any way, but it was just, it was a
sure.
learning curve. Oh, right,
Yeah.
this is not that person and they do things differently.
Got it.
So,
I
yeah.
was just gonna say, so I did not get to see that show on Broadway, Dead Outlaw, but the Tony performance, I was like, this is one of the most intriguing like storylines and things I've ever seen. I immediately was just like, what? I went right to Google. For those of you listening who haven't heard, go Google Dead Outlaw. Because I'm Googling, like, is this what, like, this really happened? Like, I don't understand. What a unique idea for a musical, just
Yes.
sidebar. And that must have just been so much fun to work on.
It really was. It's the first show I've truly, truly loved since Be
Mm,
More Chill. Just the
wow.
community that was backstage, in front of the stage, everywhere. Yeah, it was one of those really special ones that will stay with me for a long time.
I love that because I was just
Yeah.
going to ask about standout experiences before I
Mm.
start asking you about Be More Chill. So I love that Dead Outlaw is that show for you. And
Yeah.
again, those listening, go Google, go watch on YouTube, look up videos of the Tony performance and other performances. Such a cool, fun show. I'm bummed I didn't get to see that.
Yeah, closed too
Um,
soon.
what'd you say? Sorry.
Closed too soon.
Close too soon. Yes, absolutely. That's a whole other episode, but I just get so bummed. Like, no matter what the show is, like, I hate to see closures, but there's just been so many early closures lately.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating when we have this conversation of like, we want new musicals. Okay, go support them then.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
It's so hard. Oh, I hate
Yes.
seeing that.
Well, and a lot of it
Because
honestly comes down to marketing and just getting the word. If people don't recognize the name, they're not necessarily going to spend the price of a Broadway ticket. So that's where your work comes in, really handy. Your work is so important to the Broadway
thank you.
community.
Yeah, I love doing it because I just think back to, when I was a kid and I used to go to plays and I did community theater and stuff, but I go back to my first Broadway show, which was Cats in November of 1994, and I have not been the same since. And then I was a
Yeah.
rent head for a bazillion years and I saw it more than 75 times on Broadway and then I went into theater, like I'm still that theater kid. And so with the projects I've worked on, even if it's not a show, like any kind of marketing that I do, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm marketing a show.
Mm.
And, it's like everything is a show to me. And so, uh, just getting people excited and
Yes.
wanting, because I understand people protect their dollars more these days. Of course, like we all do, but you need to have fun times in your life. You need to experience different things. You need to hear different stories and just go have an experience in a room with a group of people. And that's the other thing about theater. I mean, when these shows close, it's so devastating because, okay, yes, the show closed, you know who the cast members were, whatever, but there are hundreds of people working on this show and in the
Yes.
building and behind the scenes that, the audience, the ticket buyer never sees. And, it sucks.
It's a shame.
It's
Yes.
a
Yeah,
shame.
absolutely.
Um, but to that end, when there are these shows that are so special in your life and in your career, it's like a hug when it comes back
Mm-hmm.
around. And so I
Yes.
want to talk about Be More Chill
Yes.
because I just got to see you last week at the 10-year
Yay.
reunion celebration of concerts and panel talks at Two River Theater in Red Bank. I worked there at the time in 2015 when it was starting. It's the birth of the musical, and it will always be so special to me too. Why is that show special to you?
Mm. I need George Salazar to answer this.
Oh, yes.
Um, it's special to me for two reasons. I mean, a lot of reasons, but the first is that the person who wrote the music, Joe Iconis, has a troupe of collaborators that he works with regularly, and
Mhm.
many of those people had been developing the show even long before it got to Two River, and so they were in the cast, and they already had a familiarity with each other as artists, as professionals, and as friends that really set the tone for just a particularly rich friendship, I guess, between the entire cast. And there
Yeah.
was something too, there's always something about being out of town, because everyone who was in it is from New York City, but because we were working in Jersey and we were being housed in Jersey, you don't have your normal life to go back to. You're not rushing to get home to check off your to-do list and do your errands. You're just sort of hanging out. And so we all spent an enormous amount of time together hanging out and got really close. And I will say too, a shout out to the director, Stephen Brackett, who also just fosters a rehearsal room where people are loving and kind and given permission
Mm.
to be silly. And so we all got to know each other's foibles and the best things about each other as quickly as possible. So we just got really close, I guess,
Mhm.
is the
Mhm.
first thing. And then the second thing is, one thing that I always say I love about being a stage manager, my favorite thing about being a stage manager is that we're really the only person who's there from the very beginning of the process through to the very end.
Mm.
We arrive before the actors. We're there for pre-production, we're there for design meetings. And then once it's up and running, the director leaves, the designers join for tech, and then they leave. And we stay with along with the actors until the closing day. And so it's this beautiful sort of arc that we get to see the whole process in a way that nobody else does. And with Be More Chill, that process, that arc got extended to moving through three different venues and three different sort of
Mhm.
contracts and tiers of theater, in a way that just kept that journey going.
Mhm.
um, in a way that I've never had with any other show. And the special thing about Be More Chill is when we closed it at Two River, we thought that was the end, and we cried and
Yeah.
said goodbye to it, and we had no expectations of doing it ever again. And I remember exactly where I was, where I got the phone call 3 years later from Stephen Brackett, the director, saying, "Hey, it's going to go off Broadway. Do you want to come and join us again?" And I literally jumped up and down on the sidewalks of New York and said, "Yeah, there's nothing I'd rather do more in the world than go back to that happy time and place." And
Mhm.
then as we continued doing it, first through the Broadway run, and then, I mean, first the off Broadway run and then the Broadway run, as the stakes got higher, as more money was involved, there were more pressures. You also add more people in each production. There's
Mhm.
more crew, there's more, like you were saying before about musicals in general, just more pieces and parts and things to take care of. And so it became the most challenging thing I had ever done. And I,
Mm.
for Be More Chill, stayed the production stage manager, the head stage manager throughout all stages of the process. So it all really rested on me as that through line, the person who had been there from the beginning through the end.
Yes.
And so
Mhm.
coming away from it, um, right afterwards, I held a lot of the hardships very close and had let go of a lot of the joy. And so
Mm.
coming back to it this last week and getting to just experience the joy with none of the hardship was an unbelievable high. It was just the most beautiful, most special weekend for me, in a
Mm.
really cathartic, amazing way. Yeah.
I love this answer so much. So first of all, I love to like I wasn't even thinking, you're right. Like you were with the production for all three iterations.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there were years between the
Mm-hmm.
two. And I think that that's so cool. Like I know that doesn't happen every time, for the same team to, to go through
Right.
all three
Yes.
things. But I love what you said about this time, I could just relax. I could just, stretch my legs and it could just be fun
Yeah.
because let me tell you, for those listening, go Google the Two River Theater 10-year anniversary, Be More Chill. There's some slime tutorials out there of certain things. And AKA bootlegs. But anyway, I went to the first performance of the concert, which I'm so happy that I went to the first one
Mm.
because even though I know all three were filled with super fans and supporters and friends and all of that, there's just something about the energy at the first one and like getting to witness the even the cast's emotion on stage and tears and speeches and all of that kind of stuff was so special. And you got three different shout outs from the cast during that concert. I love seeing you in the booth because they were just, because you're so good at what you do and you're such an integral part of the story. So I love that you were able to just have that happiness again, and just have fun with it.
It
And
was, oh, go ahead.
no, I just was gonna say, like, it's such a highlight in my career too. Like I have the original, you can't see it, but in my kitchen I have the original cast poster from Two River and everyone signed it. And then behind me here I have like the cast
Yes.
albums and I worked on the designs for those. And it's just such a milestone, I guess, in my career. What were you gonna say?
Yes, yes. Oh, just that it was very validating for the concert. We had one during rehearsal, we had an hour where we all just sat and told stories because there were memories interspersed throughout the concert. And so the director wanted to hear everyone just tell stories, and then he was going to pick and choose and curate which ones actually went into the concert. But it was so interesting hearing both he and the choreographer reacting to some of these stories and saying, oh, I never knew that. I never heard that. I wasn't there. And meanwhile, every single story, they were like, right, Bertie? And I was like, absolutely, because I was there for every single
Yeah.
moment of the entire
Yeah.
process. So it was very validating. And yeah.
You're like, in a way, you're like the historian of these different
Yes.
productions.
Yes.
You could be a documentarian if you wanted to.
Well, that's actually a really good point. I mean, part of a stage manager's job is we write a performance report every day and a rehearsal report every
Yes,
day.
I
So
remember getting
we are the
those.
record keepers.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Ah, love it so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I want to talk about Broadway
Quilting.
quilting, and how that came into play. It's a huge part of your life.
Yes.
So and we'll talk a little bit later about maybe how the two are slightly connected. But before we
Mhm.
get there, um, take me back to the start. Like you had
Yes.
mentioned in your bio, a long line of fabric artists in your family. So what were you learning growing up? Let's start there.
Oh, yes. Knitting, crochet, macrame, um, ice dyeing, kind of anything you can think of, silk screening. And it was my grandmother, and she learned from her mother, and my mother learned from her, and then I learned from my mother and my
Hmm.
grandmother all of these skills. And I still have so many of their pieces, so many of their sweaters, so many of their hanging plant holders and bags and things they've made,
Mm-hmm.
that it was always just very clearly going to be a part of my life. And then my first job in high school was at a Joanne Fabrics, which
Oh,
seemed like
R.I.P.
a
Joanne
natural
Fabrics.
RIP Joanne. Yeah, so I started working there when I was 14, and I learned I was always just in love with the colors, the saturated colors of the quilting fabrics in particular. And so one of the I hate saying this now at my current age, but back then I thought, oh, one of the little old ladies taught me how to quilt. And so she actually had offered to teach me. And so she came over to my house, and both my mom and I sat down for a lesson or two. And then I just continued doing it. And so my high school graduation gift from my parents was a little sewing machine, which I brought to
Oh.
college, and I made quilts on the floor of my dorm room. I also used to get up early and make my clothes for the day. I wore a lot of
Wow.
wrap skirts and apron shirts and hippy
Hmm.
dippy, easy to create in an hour on the sewing machine outfits.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
so continued to quilt and gave them to loved ones as gifts, graduation gifts, wedding presents. And then during the pandemic is when I really got serious about it. I was living in Vermont with my now husband while theaters were dark. He was working in Vermont. And so I sort of moved up there and had absolutely nothing to do. And we didn't know when we were going to have a job again. And, remember, everyone was terrified. And
Oh yeah.
for me in particular, my health insurance is through our union, and it's all based on how many weeks you've worked that year. And so it came to a certain point where everyone in the industry lost health insurance because none of us had worked for a year. And so I really was staying home and trying to find purpose and trying not to feel like I'd lost my entire identity. So I really leaned into quilting, and I took a lot of online classes and videos and found kind of my styles that I really enjoyed and appreciated, and yeah, started taking commissions.
And when you okay, so when you were, for example, like you said, the example, I'm making quilts on the floor of my dorm, like, did you ever envision having it as a business, or was it always ever
No.
just like a hobby for you at the time?
I think it was always just a hobby because, again, going back to my mother and her mother and my aunts, etc., they all just did it as hobbies, and their work is gorgeous. I mean, my mom's knitting is unreal. She could easily sell it, although the truth is, if you spend 250 hours making a sweater, you can never actually price it high enough to be. And I've run into that with my quilting too. And so I have had, in my business, I've had to learn again sort of the boundaries and limits of what I'm willing to do for a certain amount of money. I've had to raise my prices, which is always a little scary, because you worry about, will anyone actually pay this? And you have to know what your time is worth.
Absolutely.
So, yep.
Yeah. So, okay. So then you're like, all right, pandemic. I don't know what the hell is up ahead. Like, what is going on with Broadway? I don't know. I'm in Vermont. So you're making these quilts and you're like, I'm gonna open this as an official business.
Yes.
And what did you think about that? Were you scared? Were you nervous? Aside from like the raising the prices and all of that kind of thing, like, what did you think about officially becoming a business owner?
So I guess I didn't at first. I guess at first I just sort of posted on Instagram and posted on Facebook and said, hey, if anyone wants to buy a quilt, I'll do it. And most of the commissions were friends or friends of friends. And at that point, I was only doing custom quilts from scratch. So someone would say, for instance, oh, my son is graduating college and I want to make him a sunflower quilt. And so I would, make up a couple of sketches and send something along and settle on a design and make it. And those are the ones where there's just no way you can actually get paid what your time is worth. I mean, I'm thinking about that specific sunflower quilt, which took me 200 hours to make. And so if you think about even minimum wage, I'm not doing the math right now, but 200 hours times $15, it's more than anyone's going to spend. It's, $2,000 for a blanket. No one's going to do that. So what I learned, two things again. The part that I really love is what's called the piecing. It's putting the different squares of fabric together to make the top. What I didn't love is the quilting, which is stitching on top to stitch the 3 layers together, the top, the backing, and then the batting, which is the padding inside.
Got it.
And I didn't love that part. And part of that is because shoving a quilt through my little domestic machine that I've still had since, the year 2000, it's really hard, and it's hard on your body, and it's just not fun. It's not pleasant, and nothing came out looking professional and nothing. So I, in these classes, I had started learning about longarm sewing machines, which are different. They have exactly what their name says. They have a longer arm and therefore a bigger throat space that you can shove a quilt through, but also generally they're mounted on a frame on wheels. And so instead of having to move the fabric around the needle, you're driving the needle around the fabric, and it's just way easier. It's like doodling with a pencil instead of shoving fabric through a stationary machine. And so during the pandemic, I ended up buying the very smallest, sort of lowest, grade long arm machine I could find. And
Mm-hmm.
I was still just doing it for me to make my life easier, to make it go faster when I was doing these quilt commissions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't until about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago that I upgraded to a bigger long arm. So now the machine that I have is in my Brooklyn apartment, and it is on a 10-foot frame. It is basically like having a small car. It takes up an entire room in my apartment. It cost $25,000. It was an investment.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it's computerized. So I can actually set up on a grid on the computer the dimensions of the quilt, what I want the design to be, the scale I want the design to be. And then I just hit go and it will quilt a row. And of course it takes babysitting, and of course it takes, but it's not as physically hard on my body. It means that for the 8 minutes that it takes to stitch out that row, I can be doing something else, usually piecing another quilt, and then go back and do all the work that I need to do to advance the quilt to do the next row. But it allows for it to take less time. And the
Yeah.
other thing that allows for, and this is the thing, the only way quilters actually make money is by taking in other people's quilt tops who feel the same way that I do, where they love piecing, hate quilting. And so they'll send their tops and their backing to me, and I'll do the quilting for them. And I ended up so that was the part where I went, okay, I'm going to start taking in other people's quilts. Now I got to make a real business.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So that was the point at which I started getting serious, because I went, and in part, I went, okay, I have to pay off this $25,000 machine.
Yeah. Hello.
So I better be making some money. And, people
Yep.
have pointed out to me, in terms of starting a business, like that's actually a pretty low investment. It's not like I'm putting a down payment on a retail space. So it could be worse, but it still was a lot of capital. And so in trying to make that up, if I sell 4 quilts a year at $1,000 each, it just wasn't going to happen. So I needed to start taking in other people's quilts. And for that, I needed to know how to advertise, get insurance, get a certificate of authority so that I can, get a wholesale account and get my batting for cheap instead of paying retail prices. So all of these things are laid out. I ended up taking a quilting specific business course.
Oh, great.
Run by the Long Arm League. And it's what they call their rookie season. And it's about a year's worth of video tutorials and lessons that really take you step by step through starting a quilting business. And it has been an unreal, invaluable tool for me.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
it actually does the same thing that I have always loved about theater, where it sets you up with a community. There's, there are group meetings and group chats, and because all of these people have experienced exactly the same roadblocks and questions that I'm experiencing as a first-time business owner. And so getting, not only Googling how to market for a new business, but saying, how do you do this for quilting?
Yeah.
And what have you done that's tried and true, has really been invaluable. So it's been a great guiding force, and has set me up pretty well. Yeah.
I love hearing the different points in your story where you realized, like, okay, now I need to take it a step further and get more of my ducks in a row if I'm really gonna, give a go, make a go for this. But before I ask some more questions about that, I have to ask, getting this machine into your apartment, did you have to put it together in your apartment? How did that all work?
Oh my God. So the dealers came and built it in the apartment. And what happened was, I was visiting my parents in New Hampshire, and there happened to be a quilting trade show like 20 minutes away. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to that. And I fell in love with this machine. I had never really planned to get anything bigger than my little bottom of the line long arm that I already had, but I absolutely fell in love with this machine and went, oh, I need this computerized quilting. So I bought it from that shop in New Hampshire, and then they drove the 5 hours down to Brooklyn.
Wow.
Set it up in my apartment. I bought them lunch, and then they left And it was very, I mean, they clearly had never, I live on the 31st floor right next to the Brooklyn Bridge. I have a view of, the Empire State Building, and they'd never been to New York. They'd never seen anything like it. And they
Wow.
couldn't believe that a long arm was going in this crazy Brooklyn apartment.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun little road trip experience for them
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
And that was also a very effective expo that you went to,
Yes.
um,
Right.
as well.
Yes.
But I
But you're
love that
right. It
they,
would never fit out the door now. It's stuck
yeah,
in that room forever. It can't
right.
leave.
You can never move and it can never leave.
No.
And I love though that those shop owners were willing to, because it is such an investment. They're like,
Yes.
we're gonna do this for you. It's part of,
Right.
part of the purchase. Like, yeah, that's great.
Right.
Um, so okay, so now you're um you're in this league, which I love that community that you're in. They're giving you all these resources. And also, like you said, it's so great to have community with the same specific industry, the same specific
Mm-hmm.
products, services, struggles, drama, learning curve, all that stuff. So I love that you have that support in that way. And so what kinds of clients are you working with now? Is it mainly friends and family? Is it word of mouth? Are you getting referrals through that group, or how are you finding your clients right now?
So the league talks about two different kinds of markets, local markets and not local markets. I don't know what you would call
Mm-hmm.
that, national markets. And so, and the different strategies for doing that, whether you're marketing more on Instagram for mail-in quilts, or whether you're doing what I have ended up doing more, which is going to my local quilting guilds. So there's a
Mm.
guild in Manhattan, there's a guild in Brooklyn, there's a guild in New Jersey. And I again invested and paid for memberships in all of these. And I
Mm-hmm.
show up at the meetings and I hand out my little business cards. And there's
Mm.
always, at all these meetings, there's always a show and tell. So I bring a couple of my quilts and I say, I'm a long arm quilter. Here's a couple of quilts I've just finished. And inevitably, one or two people will say, oh, actually, I have a top I've been meaning to long arm. Can I
Mm.
send it to you? Can I give it to you? And I say, absolutely. And then hopefully do a good enough job that so far I have done a good enough job that they continue to return to me. And so these
Awesome.
days I'm getting between 1 and 3 a week, which is,
Wow.
yeah. And honestly, I don't want any more because I am
Mm-hmm.
still working full time as a stage manager. And so I'm
Right.
between shows right now, which means I'm working on a couple commissions from scratch, which is something I don't really have time to do when I'm in show mode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the sort of steady but low density stream of work has been great. Has been
That's
perfect.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as you were starting this as like an official business, what are
Mhm.
some of the things you had to take into consideration? For example, when you are taking someone else's stuff, they're sending it to you, they're packing it, they're trusting you with it,
Yeah.
like what are some of those considerations and
Yep,
things?
definitely insurance.
Mm,
And it's interesting because I work out of my home. So we, of course, have renter's insurance, but I need to be, because people are coming now to drop off their quilts. They're coming in person. So we need to have a, a business insurance, slip and fall insurance.
yep.
And yes, their property, it's tough. It's tricky with something that's homemade like a quilt, because again, cost wise, I mean, you can just never, if you're looking at, it's $200 worth of materials, but of course it means so much more than that. So an insurance company is only going to pay $200, but it's
Yeah.
of course not really about that. It's the sentimental, it's the work put in. So I just try as hard as I can not to screw it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I've seen I don't know if you've ever done these, but like the t-shirt quilts. Have
uh-huh.
you ever done
Yep.
any of those? I think those are kind of cool
I
as
have.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
nostalgic thing.
Yeah, and I
Hmm.
actually, Katie Carlson, who plays Chloe
Mm.
Valentine in Be More Chill, she sent me one time an old t-shirt quilt that someone had made for her that was falling apart, and I did a bunch of repairs for her.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Love Katie. She's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. And then it is word of
Um,
mouth. I got
mm,
a message on Instagram the other day from someone who said, "Oh, my son is so and so, who's an actor that I worked at the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey 20 years ago."
oh,
And she's a
wow.
quilter. And he said, "Oh, my friend Bertie is a quilter. Let me show you her stuff." And now she's going to be sending me her quilt top. So it is a lot of word of mouth.
Hmm.
Um, and again, since I'm really not looking for more volume right now, it's kind of the perfect level of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask, like, how do you balance working backstage in theater and all of the time commitment there and
Yeah.
running around and all of that with running this creative business? But I like that you gave yourself a capacity. You were like, I
Yeah.
hit my limit and
Yeah.
maybe I'll expand it in the future, but I can always pull
Yeah.
back. You have that flexibility. So that's great.
And I definitely do think of that now. I had never seen myself doing anything except stage managing, but I do think there is a time limit on it. I just think it takes so much time and effort. Like you were asking earlier about work-life balance, there just isn't much. There isn't
Yeah.
much self-care I can really do. And so I'm not probably going to do it forever. And
Hmm.
when I stop, I will be able to lean 100% into quilting, and I'll have this foundation of these people I've been working with for years. And I'm, yeah,
Hmm.
grateful for it.
With your background being like you're so good at organization and communication, do you ever think about teaching or workshops or
Mm.
trainings like with you leading stuff like that?
In terms of stage management or quilting,
No, in
or both?
quilting. I mean, either
In
one, I
quilting.
guess, but I was asking about quilting.
So, yeah, I am still, it's fascinating. I am still searching for my own 100% style.
Hmm.
I, there's so many amazing quilters out there, artists whose work I love, and I have dabbled in sort of mimicking each of their works to see what feels most authentic to me and where do I want to actually spend my time. And I think I wouldn't quite feel comfortable teaching until I found something that was wholly mine. And it
Hmm.
connects to me for stage management because I often feel like I'm not really an artist. Like I can work off a pattern and make it better. I'm not great at coming up with an initial idea all on my own. And
Hmm.
so I don't necessarily want to teach something like, obviously, there are all kinds of technical elements that I have mastered at this point. I
Hmm.
can sew a curve better than anybody you know, but I don't really have any desire. It doesn't feel fun to teach that. I think if I
Got
were
it.
to teach, it would be something that is wholly mine. And I haven't
Hmm.
actually found that yet because I
Okay.
am a facilitator of art.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so now I have to ask, how did you
Mhm.
get some of your pieces into productions and
Mm.
shows? I read that they were in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the
Mhm.
Tina Turner musical, the MJ musical. How did that happen? Tell me
So
everything.
it's actually very simple. It is a
Okay.
props master, props supervisor, rather, that I know first from college, but have since done several shows with him, both on and off Broadway. And he does all the props for all the shows. He's just incredible. And so whenever he needs a quilt, he thinks of me and uses me.
Awesome.
So I'm about to actually do two more quilts for MJ because the original ones that I made, it's been several years now, and they get fireproofed every year. And this
Oh,
year,
wow.
yeah, this year I guess they soaked them too much with the fireproofing, and so they shrank. And
Mm.
so they're now too small. And so I'm waiting on fabric to arrive from London in order to quilt up new
Hmm.
new quilts for MJ.
What is the context for that particular quilt? What is the scene or what is it used in?
It's in a hotel room. I will be
Hmm.
honest, I have not seen MJ, but
Okay.
I have seen pictures of the quilt on stage. It's
Of
in a
the quilt.
hotel
Yeah.
room.
Hmm.
And I know that it is used, the quilt is sort of used as a magic trick to cover road
Hmm.
boxes. And so then it
Okay.
kind of snatched away in some magic way that I don't know. And then suddenly you're on tour with Michael with
Got
these road
it.
boxes. That's what I
Okay,
know.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Awesome.
it had to be a very specific 70s looking fabric. And so I guess the prop supervisor designed what he wanted and had it printed on fabric, but then needed it to have the weight of a
Oh.
quilt and not just be a sheet because of the way the actors are manipulating it in order to do the magic trick. And so he needed it quilted. And so he sent it to me. And so that's not at all artistic. I'm just doing what we call a meander path all the way along this 22 yards of fabric, but
Hmm.
it pays the bills, I'll tell you that much.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that leads me to the next thing I was going to talk about, which is like bridging both of these worlds, like both of these
Mm.
creative spots that you're in. Um, do you see, I mean, you've mentioned some of it already, some of the similarities between, or some of the stuff that comes up for you,
Yeah.
similarly between stage managing and quilting. Is there anything else that connects that for you, those two worlds?
Mm.
They're two so different skill sets, but
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I don't know. I think, there's a focus and a precision in both worlds that I think I would say the quilting helps me foster in the stage managing more. Um,
Mhm.
so almost as an exercise for or training for stage managing in a way.
Yeah.
Attention to detail and precision. Um, yeah.
Hmm.
And then
And
I do really like, having turned it into a business, I do really like facilitating other people's visions. These people who send me their quilt tops and say, "Oh, I have a really modern aesthetic, but I can't picture what should go on it." And me saying, "Ooh, here's three really beautiful modern designs. What do you think of this one or this one?" Or they'll say like, "I have no idea. Just do what you want." And I say, "Well, you have a lot of straight lines. Wouldn't it be cool to add some curves and get some movement in there?"
mhm.
So yeah, it's again sort of just facilitating people's visions and making the best art we can together. I really love
Yeah.
collaborating.
Yeah, that definitely comes through because I think sometimes with any kind of creative project, whether it's quilting, whether it's, writing, dance, whatever the thing is, like
Mhm.
sometimes you need that extra person, that extra set of eyes to kind of
Yes.
help you get to that next point. And it sounds like that's exactly what you do for these folks that are sending in, their what they've completed thus far, and they kind of need you to pull it all together for them. Oops, my mic
Yeah.
fell. To pull it all together for them, and also to suggest how it could be. Sometimes they can't just see that. And I love that you come in and you're like, wait, I know exactly what we should do
Mm-hmm.
here.
Hmm.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
And because I've seen some of your quilting, and again, everyone needs to hop into the show notes and look up Bertie on Instagram and her website to see her amazing work. I just think it's so like some of the quilts that you have done are things that I have just literally never seen before. Like for example, so many or several of your designs have like this gradient feel or like this
Yes.
ombre look, and I'm like, my brain just explodes because I'm like, I don't understand how she did this.
I'm working on one of those right now. Actually, I'm going to be
Mm,
posting and probably later today on Instagram. And
awesome.
it's a gradation, like you said, but it also sort of turns into a landscape. So this one looks like the
Mm.
oceans with the sunset, and I'm really excited about it.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. And for folks who are interested, I know you don't have capacity in this moment, but if they were wanting a commission in the
Oh
future,
yeah.
what does that process look like? Like how do you decide,
Yeah.
how do you get that pulled together?
Definitely. I take a lot of information from the person about what the purpose is for the quilt. So is it going to be hanging on the wall? Is it going to be a comfy couch cushion? Is it going to be a showpiece? Is it going to be, so that's sort of the first thing. How big do they want it? And then any words that come to mind, like, do they like modern? Do they like traditional? Do they like cool colors? Do they like, what is your aesthetic? What are you trying to match, or what is it trying to go to? Or if it's a gift, what are the people you're giving it to like? What do they already have in their home that we want to make it, go with? And then I'll
Mm-hmm.
send 5 or 6 usually up to 10 sort of suggestions of different patterns and just kind of get folks' reactions. What do you like? What are you interested in? And then take it from there. And
Got it.
I sort of say to people they can have as much input or as little as they want. They can be involved in every step of the way, from fabric selection to thread color selection, or they can just say, I want a sunflower quilt, surprise me. And I'm happy to do that. I definitely learned, this was one of the first ones that I sold during the pandemic when I first started taking commissions. I gave that blanket, you can be as involved as you want. And I ended up remaking this quilt about 4 times because they kept sort of changing their mind. And so I've had to put a little bit more sort of boundaries on that idea. But the spirit of that is true. I really want folks to be as involved as they want to within reason, to make it feel personal, to make it personalized.
Yeah. And where in terms of your supplies and all of your materials and stuff, like I think back to Project Runway when they would go to Mood Fabrics and get these bolts of fabric and stuff. Is that where you're going? Are you going online? Are you going to Joanne Fabric? Oh, not Joanne Fabrics, but where are you getting your stuff these days?
I have a couple local quilt shops, both in New York and in Vermont, where our other house is. And
cool.
I try to go to them first, and I have a really good relationship with the owners in particular of the Vermont shops. And so I'm able to say like, ooh, I'm doing a new project. Any chance you want to get XYZ fabric in stock for me? And they'll say yes or no. And then yes, online is kind of a last resort.
Cool. I love that you have, just like you were saying in the beginning of our conversation, you have this network and these relationships, with the stage management side, and then you have it with your league, and now you have it with your vendors and suppliers. Like it's a recurring theme of those relationships and who kind of, and what they can do for you. So I love that.
Yeah, I think it just makes you stronger.
Yeah. So, Bertie, I have loved this conversation so much. I learned so much more about you and what you do and your background. And I just think that your quilting is incredible. And I'm so excited for people to check you out and get in touch, whether it's a commission or whether it's, hey, I want my quilt completed sometime. Can you help me? I don't know what I'm doing. Bertie's got the skills and she's got the machine. So you need to get in touch with her, hop into the show notes and find her on BroadwayQuilting.com. Look her up on Instagram at Broadway Quilting. But I always like to ask my guests, every single guest, this question as we head to the end here. What is something that you are currently obsessed with? It could be anything. It could be a show, a snack, a person, an album, just something that lights you up these days.
I'm currently obsessed with glass blowing. I got really excited about it. My brother and I like to give each other experiences as gifts for Christmas and birthdays, etc. And most recently, I got he and his wife a class of glass blowing, and they sent me pictures and it just looked so cool. And then they started watching this reality TV show, competition show called Blown Away, which is on Netflix, which is just it's the Great British Bake Off, except for glass blowing. And I have become obsessed with it. And so I think that's going to be my next hobby, maybe, as I got to find a place in New York to go try glass blowing.
Yeah, I have never done it either.
No.
I agree with you. Anytime that I see videos or anything, I'm just like, I want to do that. Now, mind you, there's a place 10 minutes from me. It's a place in Asbury Park. Yes, a place in Asbury Park called Hot Sand.
Alicia, let's go.
Okay, let's go. It's been there forever and I've always wanted to go. Let's go this fall.
Okay. That sounds amazing. Let's do it.
They have like, it's a shop. You could just buy stuff too, but they have demonstrations, they have classes, they do a specific thing every fall. I know for sure they do a specific thing where you can make a pumpkin
Oh, cute.
Like blow a bubble, make a pumpkin thing.
Yes.
So yeah, Hot Sand Studio or Hot Sand
I love that
AP.
you know
I
about
can
this. You just happen to
Yes.
say, "Oh, I've got you covered."
Yeah, totally. Okay, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're making
Okay,
plans.
good.
Um, well, Bertie, thank you again so, so, so much for taking the time chatting with me, and for letting us into your world. I love what you do, behind the scenes and, the quilting as well. And just thank you for everything. By the way, on a personal slash professional note, thank you for making my life easier too. Like when we would collaborate, like I was always so excited when you were on the sheet of the artist coming in. Like I said, you are an artist to me.
Mm.
And I just was so grateful. I was like, yes, Bertie's working the show. Thank the Lord.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I so appreciate you.
All right, my friend. I'll talk with you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.